Hello everyone, welcome to the Resume Fundamentals Workshop. We are so happy you are here. Today we are going to talk about a few key areas when it comes to resume writing. I highly suggest having a copy of your resume on hand so that you can make notes for changes as we go through the information today. The three key areas that we will be covering is resume formatting best practices, so how you can use your visual appearance of the resume to get it noticed. Resume sections, so we'll talk about what exactly you want to include on your resume, as well as some resume writing tips, so how you can avoid being mundane and also really showcase your achievements. First off, we will talk about resume formatting. So when it comes to resume, content is king. That's what you're actually talking about on the resume. But a little bit of style really helps too. What I like to say is resume style is very similar to the hooking statement in an essay. So what are you going to do to really hook your reader to make them want to continue to read your document? That is what resume style does for the resume. On this slide, we have two different resumes from the same person. The resume on the left and the resume on the right. If you put yourself in the mindset of a recruiter who has to review many applications, sometimes more than 100, if you have to go through that many resumes in a fairly quick time frame, which one would you prefer to read? The resume on the left or the resume on the right? Most people prefer the resume on the right, and this is due to a few key formatting elements. You will notice that it has very clear and easy to read section headings. There are certain items in bold to help draw the attention of the reader to some very important pieces of information, as well as some bullet points to really break down dense information into easy to read statements. This is really what you are aiming to do with your resume styling. We're not going so far as to designing a really graphic, colorful resume at this point, and I will get into why you won't want to do that in a little bit, but you can still have some nice style when using a blank Word document. This is just a few more examples of what your resume could look like when it comes to using a blank Word document. If you're not someone who wants to use a little bit of color, there's definitely options to do a grayscale resume like the one on the far right, or black and white like the resume on the far left is the grayscale, the far right is the black and white, or you have the resume in the middle that has a little bit of color. No matter which type of style you go for, you can still make your resume unique to you while still using some key elements such as the clear section headings, bold to help certain items stand out, bullet points to separate out dense information, as well as aligning the dates out separately from the rest of the information to really help your reader get through all of the information on the page a little bit easier. This is just a nice quote from a recruiter who does many application reviews. And they say, when I open a nice, neat resume with clear headers, line separations, clearly in chronological order, I am more likely to go through each section of the resume. Even if the experience is not that great, having a resume that looks professional and reads well will cause me to spend more time examining it. This is exactly what you're trying to do with style, is to convince the reader to want to actually look at the document. It is up to the reader's discretion to decide who moves forward to an interview pile or who is told no. And if they are finding it difficult to get the good information they need from your document, they can put you in the no pile and where you are not referred ahead for an interview. So it's really important to spend some time creating a really nice document. Now, I can't talk about resume formatting without also introducing you to applicant tracking systems, or ATSs. So what an ATS is it's a software system that scans your resume for predetermined keywords and minimum qualifications based off of the job description to determine whether you meet those qualifications. If it determines that you do not, it will put you in the no pile, if you will. And if it determines that you do meet those minimum qualifications, it will pass you on to the hiring team. What happens with these systems is that they are a huge time saver for companies. So they're used in about 90 to 95% of businesses, large to small, government, nonprofit, public, etc. Everyone is using these systems because they can get through resumes much faster than one human being can. The other thing we need to do is really equalize the application or the hiring process, because they remove human biases that can happen when reviewing applications. So these are really important systems to know about. Since they are so prevalent, you need to know how to get past these tracking systems. One way to do that is to absolutely use a blank Word document. Do not use a pre-designed resume template. These systems cannot read pre-designed templates. There's too much information embedded into the document. So what happens is the system kicks you out, puts you in the no pile, and you are not referred on to an interview. So do yourself a favor. If you have used a resume template, even though they are very appealing and they do look nice, they will cause a lot of heartache and headache down the road. So please do yourself a favor and start over in a blank Word document. The other thing to be highly aware of with these applicant tracking systems is when it comes to writing your resume, you will want to slightly shift your resume for every single job you apply for, because this ATS scans your document for predetermined keywords and qualification based solely on that job description. And we will talk a little bit more about this later. I like to show these resume examples because when you go online and Google good resumes, this resume someone developed for Elon Musk pops up as a highly recommended resume, and it is absolutely wrong. Please, please do not design a resume like Elon Musk's here. First off, Elon Musk will never be applying to a job that requires an applicant tracking system. He is at a whole different level with the types of positions he would be going for, so he can have a fancy resume with all sorts of fun stuff embedded for it. You all are on a different level at this point in your careers. I really hope that you get to Elon Musk someday, but for now, the positions you're going to be applying for, you need to design a much more simplified document to get through that applicant tracking system, but still have enough visual appeal to still draw in your reader when you get to that point. My apologies. This is cut off a little bit at the top of the bottom and the bottom, but you can and still get the point here. So please, again, I can't stress it enough, if you go online and research resumes, most places out there are trying to tell you to use these resume templates that give, yes, very good design, but absolutely will fail the applicant tracking system, therefore ruling you out for an interview. Please, please use a blank Word document like the resume on the right. These are a few items that you can use to give yourself some style, though still get through the applicant tracking system. One thing that I catch a lot of times that is of note is that if you are listing skills, a lot of times people put those into tables. Tables cannot be read by applicant tracking systems, so you want to put those into columns instead, but you do not want to put your entire resume into 2 columns, again, because this can fail the applicant tracking system. So that wraps up the portion about resume formatting, and now we're going to head into resume sections. So what exactly are you going to put on your resume and how will you organize it? First and foremost, you want your name and contact information right up top, clear and easy to read. You do not need an address on a modern resume, just your name, email, and phone number. If you have a link to a portfolio of your work, such as a LinkedIn or a GitHub, you absolutely can include that near your contact information as well, but you do not need an address on your resume, on a modern resume. Next, you will want to have your education somewhere at least in the top third of the resume. This is because your education is your key minimum qualification at this point in your careers, whether you're going for your first job after graduation or an internship. We have heard over and over from recruiters who really like to hire our students that if they cannot find your degree quick and easy, they will put your resume into the no pile and you will not be offered an interview, because they have to know what your degree is in order to even offer you an interview. So do yourself a favor, make sure your education is somewhere near the top, nicely organized, clear and easy to read for your reader. Next, we want to talk about your experience. So in the past, experience was all lumped into one section, and then it was put into what we call reverse chronological, which means you start with whatever you're currently doing and you work your way into the past. What happens is that some of your highly relevant experience sometimes can get lost with this method. So what I encourage you to do is break your experience down into multiple headings. That could be relevant experience, leadership experience, volunteer, or additional experience. This really depends on you and your own unique experiences and how you want to showcase them. So if you don't have something that's on this list right here, that's totally fine. You don't need to include one of those sections. I'm just giving some examples of how you could break apart your experience to really help different items show up well. Finally, we want to talk about technical skills. These can go really at any point in the resume. A lot of people put them up near where education is, maybe before you dive into your relevant experience. For many of you, though, you will need a technical skills section where you mention some key skills related to your professions. If you're ever curious as what you might want to put in this section, job descriptions can be really helpful in determining what skills to list, because they a lot of times list what types of skill sets they need you to have. You can also talk to your professors and they can help give you some guidance on what to list here, as well as your classes. If you think about each of your individual major specific courses, think about what are some of the key technical skills you've been learning in those, and those would be great to list as well on the resume. I want to show you next, when you're looking at what to include within each section, how this looks. So to start, at the top of your resume, you will have your heading. Please note that this is not a header. It is a heading in the body of the resume. Do not put your heading into an actual header. Keep it right in the main body of the resume. Here you want to make sure your name is nice and big, easy to read, stands out, and then you have your email and your phone number at the very least, and then, like I said prior, if you have a LinkedIn or a GitHub or some other online portfolio of your work, you can include that link here. Right below that, you see what is on modern resumes is becoming popular, is called a headline. And it's where people take some key words from the job title and job description and put it into a headline to catch the reader's attention. This is optional, but we are finding that it is becoming more and more popular on a resume. Next, we'll take a look at what an education section could look like. Here, you want to make sure that you have your college name, so Oregon Institute of Technology, and then in parentheses, I like to include Oregon Tech, since we're known as both, as well as the city and state in which you are attending Oregon Tech. You will also want to make sure you have your full degree name, so don't abbreviate here. So the abbreviation for Bachelor of Science is BS. You want to actually write out the entire degree name as it will appear on your diploma, and bold the degree so that it easily stands out to your reader. So a lot of times when I'm reviewing resumes, people bold the institution and not their degree. And what happens here is the reader is more concerned with what degree you're getting rather than where you're getting the degree. That comes secondary. So instead, please make sure you bold your actual degree name, and then include your graduation date, month, and year. And then you can also include your GPA. This person has broken theirs down between major and overall. You do not need to do this if you have a competitive overall GPA. Right around a 3.0 or higher is totally fine to list on the resume, as well as if you have any deans or presidents lists. It's optional. You don't have to put them on your resume. But if you're somebody who maybe doesn't have a whole lot of work experience, these deans and presidents lists awards can be helpful in kind of showing your work ethic as it relates to your coursework. Next, we will talk a little bit about your experience section. So this person chose to put business management experience as their relevant experience section heading. This is totally okay to do. If you have experience directly related to the positions you're going for, you can be very descriptive with your section heading, whether that's marketing experience or software engineering experience or mechanical engineering experience. You can absolutely name a section that if you bring that directly related experience. When you're talking about a project, a job, a volunteer opportunity, any experience you bring, you want to include a few key pieces of information. You want to list the company in which you worked for, the city and state, and the date ranges in which you worked there, plus your job title. If you're adding a project, which I highly recommend, having either a projects section or putting some key projects into your relevant experience. When you're talking about a project, you want to list that you did the project with Oregon Tech, if we're talking about like a class project, the dates that you worked on the project as well as the project title, but it'll still look very similar to how you would list an internship or a job. Instead of just saying intern, get a little more descriptive with your internship title. It can be very advantageous to you to put a very clearly defined job title so that it stands out well to your reader to know that this internship was highly relevant to the position you're going for. And then always bold your job title. Again, a lot of times what happens when I'm reviewing resumes is people bold the where they worked, not what they did. And your reader will gain a lot more insight into your experience if you bold a job title instead. And then finally, we get into our descriptions. And so this is moving more into the resume writing part of this presentation. And a few key things here to start is that you want to break your information into separate bullet points. If you use large, dense paragraphs, your information will get lost in too much word and your wording, and your audience will not be able to find the key points as quickly. So we want to do them a favor, break apart your positions into separate bullet points, and you want to start strong. So you can start with an achievement, such as the first one, contributing to a new system, or the next couple are starting with some key skill sets to hook the reader. Okay, a little bit more on resume writing. I will say that this is one of the more difficult parts of designing a resume, is really figuring out how best to describe your experiences that's really going to catch your reader. So be patient with yourself. This is something that people are always updating, changing, editing, finding better ways to word things. And so just give yourself time here to get this figured out. Absolutely have people review your resume to see if they have any tips on how better to describe things. But here's some key things to at least get you started. So definitely avoid the mundane. We want to keep your reader engaged. So instead of stating things about your experiences that are kind of boring, like collecting reports or made sandwiches, organized files, this is really what we called duties focused. So it's really just kind of like job tasks and a little bit boring. So what we really want to focus on is the highly transferable work that you did and what it accomplished. So if you're listing working at, say, Subway while you were in school, having work history, even if it's not relevant to your career field, is still valued. So it's good to still have on your resume, but what they won't find value in is if you say you made sandwiches. They don't really care that you have that skill unless you're going into the food industry. What you do want to think about is instead is those highly transferable skills that you used on the job that you will continue to use in your new career path. So that could be working in a fast-paced environment, that could be handling difficult customers, that could be prioritizing a high amount of tasks in a short amount of time. Those are the parts of the jobs that you want to really be considering talking about. And then you want to think about what those tasks really accomplished, and we'll more on that to come. Next, you really want to start strong. So instead of responsible for, duties included, dive right in with an action verb. This is what really catches your reader's attention. So using action verbs such as created, formulated, helped, etc. is much more descriptive at the beginning of a bullet point for your reader than responsible for or duties included. You want to use a variety of action verbs though. You don't want to use the same word over and over and over because that just brings us back to point one, which gets a little mundane. So you can look up action verbs, there's tons of them, and use a variety when you're describing your experiences. Next, you want to do what we called writing tight. So what this means is that you write out your full thought, your whole bullet point. Don't worry about how long it is. Don't worry if it feels a little too wordy. Just get your full thought out there on the page, and then you want to go in and edit it and start removing anything that isn't needed to still make your key point. There's a lot of filler words we use when writing full essay style writing, full paragraphs that really are not needed to still really make an awesome point about the accomplishments you did at a project or a job. Next is accomplishments. You really want to refocus your mindset here from job tasks to what did you accomplish by doing that job task. So you want to demonstrate your skills, but use those skills within accomplishment statements. So think about the why behind why you're doing these certain tasks and talk about it from that standpoint. And then finally, as I was talking before about the applicant tracking systems, you want to make sure that with every job you're applying for, you match keywords from the job posting to get through the ATS and then also grab the reader's attention when it gets to a human's hands. So this could be as simple as if you mentioned teamwork on your resume and they talk a lot about collaborating, change teamwork to collaborated. You also want to look for any key skills they're mentioning throughout the job description and make sure you have those skills listed somewhere on your resume. And same with any minimum qualifications such as degree, certain levels of skills, etc. You want to make sure any of those minimum qualifications that you meet are also somewhere on your resume. Another way to think about bullet point writing is through these super handy formulas. I cannot take credit for designing these. I do not know who came up with this, but I find it very helpful. So as you see here, we have the formula performed X by doing Y, accomplishing Z. Or another way to think about it is what did you do, how did you do it, and why. And then I have 3 examples here where I've corresponded the highlight color to the part of the formula that it correlates with. So the light blue highlight is the performed X, or the what piece. The gray is by doing Y, or the how piece of the formula. And the yellow highlight is the accomplishment, or the why you did this. So I will give you a moment to look through this and start to get an idea of how these formulas work. Okay, you'll notice that the last bullet point is reversed, and I did that on purpose to show that you don't necessarily have to order the bullet point all the time exactly in the order of what, how, and why. So this bullet point started with the accomplishment and then ended with the what did they do. So really it doesn't matter in what order you have the formula, you just want to make sure you have each piece of the formula in each bullet point that you write. The last piece that I'd like to talk about today before we are all finished with this resume fundamentals workshop is that there's a few things you just need to be aware of to not do on your resume. One, we've already talked about this, but please do not use those resume templates, as well as 2-column resumes, graphics, and tables. All of those will not get through an applicant tracking system. So set yourself up for success, and please use a blank Word document and eliminate any of these items listed here. Next, this seems silly, but our recruiters are tired of Times New Roman font. It was the standard font for a very long time. So engage them by using a different font than Times New Roman. Any sans serif family font is fine. Just make sure it's something that is easy to read. Microsoft Word right now automatically defaults to Calibri, which is totally fine. This is just not the time to get too artsy or creative with your font styles. Make sure it is easy to read for all audiences. You definitely do not want to lie or misrepresent on your resume. You do want to showcase your abilities. You want to state true facts about you and your accomplishments, but you do not want to lie or misrepresent. This always has a way to coming to light, and then it leads to a very embarrassing situation. Next, you do not want to have more than 2 pages. I always get asked, should my resume be 1 page, 2, 3? How long should my resume be? In most cases, you want a 1-page resume. Most cases. If you are someone who has had a career prior to coming to college, military experience prior to college, or someone who is very, very involved in many different organizations, many different internships, etc., maybe you will need to bump onto 2 pages, which is okay. You just don't want to go beyond 2 pages onto a third. So definitely no more than 2 pages. Also, please don't use teeny tiny margins. It's okay to move your margins out to a 0.5 inch margin if need be to get your information to 1 page. But if you go any farther, it can get hard for people to print. It just doesn't visually look very great, and it also can mess with that ATS. Finally, please make sure someone edits your resume for any typos. When we're used to looking at our document, it's easy for us to just fill in the words that we meant to say, and we don't always catch our own mistakes. So have someone else review your resume for typo-specific type mistakes. And also look for any inconsistencies. So you want your formatting to be consistent throughout the entire document to help with the visual appeal as well as make it easy for your reader to get through. So an example of an inconsistency could be different types of bullet points. So if you used a solid circle part of the resume but then open up to just an outline of a circle on another point in the resume, you just want to make sure all those bullet points are the same. As well as with bullet points, the statements, some people use periods at the end and some don't. Either way is fine. You just want to make sure you do it all one way or all the other. This concludes the workshop today. I am so glad you all were able to join us. A few key takeaways for you before you wrap things up here is when it comes to resume formatting, please use the function in Microsoft Word to create visual appeal to a blank document. Do not use a template. Resume sections, be strategic with your section headings to encourage your audience attention and to highlight your own unique experiences. And finally, with resume writing, write about your accomplishments using keywords from the job description to get yourself noticed. Write out your bullet points and then go back and edit out any kind of filler words and unnecessary content so that your key points really stand out to your reader. That is it for today, folks. Again, we are so happy that you were able to join us. We will open it up for questions at this time. Please know that you can find more resources and information through TechWeb. You can make appointments on Handshake, as well as we have a ton of awesome resources in our Canvas course that you all have access to. So it's called Internship and Job Search Resources in Canvas. You all have access. It's broken down by modules, so go to the modules and find the topic that you are wondering about, and you'll find tons of awesome information. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.